Cognitive outs is a term or a phrase that I use a lot. And you could watch some other videos where I describe it in more detail. But very simply, what that is to me is it's the things that our subconscious mind, right? The part of our mind that's looking to minimize discomfort. It's the things that it looks for, the excuses, the justifications, the stories, the narratives that it can grab onto to get away with not doing the thing we probably should be doing, right? You call it an excuse, you can call it a justification, call it what you want, but we constantly look for these cognitive outs because they help make the story work as such where we can act in a way that's probably not in our best interest or doesn't force us to do the hard thing, and we feel okay about it. So if you're trying to get in shape, you want to go for a run, and your son reminds you that he has, a project due tomorrow, there it is. There's my cognitive out. I don't have to run tonight. I don't have to go work out. I have to help my son with this project. You probably still could go work out. You could do both, but it gave you the excuse you needed. And you can kind of go through all different examples of that. What I realized tonight in a conversation with my wife was that perhaps the most powerful cognitive out for us, for many of us, is apologizing, saying we're sorry. And I'll give a quick context of this. So I was having a conversation with my wife, and this could easily be me. In this case, it happened to be my wife, but it's been me 100,000 times over. So not pointing fingers, but quick story, heat of the moment, my son was kind of acting not great, being a little whiny, being a little whatever. My wife lost her temper, and kind of was yelling at him and this, that, and, just lost it, right? Lost her temper, as we all have in the past. And then in that moment, as I tried to calmly, diplomatically kind of bring her back, she wasn't having that, and she kind of wasn't happy with me either, etc. And then naturally, a few hours later, realized, hey, that probably wasn't the right way to act, and decided today, so this happened yesterday, decided today she was going to apologize to my son and let him know, like, hey, I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake, what have you. Great. Seems all good, right? As she was saying it to me, I did what I do now, which is, assess things and analyze things and break things down. And I was talking about it, and I said another phrase that I use a lot, somebody's lying, right? Yesterday, when you were in the midst of losing your shit and losing your temper, in that moment, you were absolutely certain that you were right and that the way you were acting and you losing your temper was all totally fine. To the extent that when I tried to be like, hey, maybe you should pull back a little bit, you more or less told me to go fuck off. But now, 24 hours later, you're sitting here and you're saying, hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that, right? To the extent that you apologized. So those two things don't add up, right? Somebody's lying. So we were kind of talking through that. And what she said to me was like, no, I get it. And that's why I apologized, right? That's why I said, I'm sorry. Like, as if, all's good. And we know this, right? This is a cliched thing, like people that just apologize just to apologize. Or the example I always think of is in a religious sense, something that's always, sat wrong with me is the idea that you can repent. You could sin, and then you apologize, you ask for forgiveness, you repent, and it's forgiven. The logic of that was never really solid for me. But bring it back to this example. What I noticed was happening was in my wife's mind, she wasn't really addressing the issue. She wasn't really getting into the mud of what triggered her yesterday, what allowed her to get to that point where she really lost her temper and said things she didn't want to say, what allowed her to break bad, right? What happened there? What was behind it? What was the math she was running? What in that moment told her she was right so that she could actually fix it going forward for the long term? And what was stopping her from doing that work, from figuring that out, from getting to that answer and actually improving, was she said, well, I apologized, right? Like I'm good. Like I fixed it. Like I recognized enough and I apologized. And it's a little more nuanced than the cliche I just talked about, 30 seconds ago, where it's just you apologize just to get out of it, right? We've all seen that. And that wasn't what she was doing. She wasn't saying it just to say it. She meant it. She meant it in that moment. And that's why I say it's maybe the most powerful cognitive out. Because particularly when we mean it, and she did, right? No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. It gives us a sense of relief and release. Like, oh, I meant it. It was genuine. I apologized. I'm good here. My work is done. Your work's not done. The work is not done. The work is figuring out why it happened to begin with. How do you fix it going forward? What was the things that led you to that, right? So somebody's lying. Who was lying in this? Maybe the truth is you felt like that was right and you were justified, but this apology is shading that, right? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you feel like I wish I never acted like that again, but you're never going to fix it if you just allow that apology to cloud everything, right? If you take that cognitive out of the apology, your subconscious has this recognition of like, oh, I don't have to do the hard work now and actually fix myself. I'll just apologize. And again, all the worse if you actually mean it, because then it's that much more ammunition for your subconscious to say, no, 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 this wasn't a bullshit apology. I actually meant it. So I don't have to do anything else. So for me, something I hadn't really thought of, but I will much more now, is to look out for those instances where I feel like I'm covered because I'm genuinely sorry, but then I don't do any work beyond that.